Hey guys, welcome back to Data with Dominic, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to use GitHub and VS Code together in the year 2025. There's been sufficient updates with regards to both software, so I just want to make a video quickly showing you how you can integrate them and use them together in 2025, along with using some of the more common commands in VS Code, such as clone, add, commit, push, pull, branch, checkout, merge, pull requests, merge conflicts. You need two things to get started. One is obviously a GitHub account. So I've signed in here on my account, and also you need to download VS Code on whatever laptop you're using. All right. So I've got VS Code already downloaded, and what you need to do is you need to sign in to your GitHub account on VS Code. All right. So I've signed in here. If you want to sign in, you just need to come to this accounts tab on the bottom left corner of the screen, and then you'll have a sign in to GitHub account. Sign in to GitHub tab over here. You just press that and it'll take you to your web OAuth login page, and you can sign in there. All right. Otherwise it's pretty straightforward, and once that's done, you're ready to go. All right. So let's get started. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to take you through this demo of how we can use VS Code and GitHub together, is basically I'm just going to take you through creating a repository and then working with it in VS Code, and sort of going through some of the basic Git commands. All right. So let's begin. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my repositories. All right. And I'm going to create a new repository. Okay. So once I create a new repository, I'm just going to call it maybe something like VS Code Hello World. All right. Hello World. I'm using GitHub and VS Code together in 2025. Anything. And then you want to make sure you have a README file, just so that you have one file in the one file to work with in the folder. All right. So and then you're just going to hit create repository. All right. So once you hit create repository, you make sure it's public. All right. It should be a public repository. So we have this VS Code Hello World created in your GitHub account. All right. So the next thing you want to do is come over to your Visual Studio Code, and then you want to basically clone that repository. All right. That means pull it from your GitHub cloud account to VS Code on your system. All right. So what you're going to do is very simple. You can either come here to this command bar and do show run commands. But the simpler way to do it is just to do Command Shift P if you're on Mac, or Control Shift P if you're on Windows, right? So Command Shift P, and then you do git clone. All right, I already have it in my recently used, so that's fine. And then it shows you clone from GitHub. All right, I'm just going to click clone from GitHub, and what happens here is it gives you the option to choose a repository name. All right, so normally if your internet is fast, it goes into your GitHub account and it can find all the GitHub repos that you have. All right. So it doesn't seem to be doing that here. So maybe then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go copy the URL of my public GitHub repo. Okay, so it's come. All right. So normally what happens is when you click git clone, you should see all your repos. All right. If you have other public repos which you want to clone and work with, you can just put the URL in there and then hit enter, and then it'll clone it. But here I see I've got my VS Code Hello World from my GitHub account. So I'm going to hit that, and then it asks you to choose where you want to set that up. All right. So I want to set that up inside my developer folder, inside a folder of the same name. All right. I'm going to VS Code Hello World, create, and select as repo destination. All right. So it's cloning, and then it wants to open that as a window. All right. So what you can see is we've got now our new GitHub repository cloned. It's an empty repository. It's just got that README file which we were discussing. All right, and that's just basically got the repo name and the description that we are using. All right, so nothing too crazy out there. All right, so the first thing which we're going to do is basically we're going to come down here, and we're going to create a new file maybe just to get things kicked off with our project. So this would normally be a code file, but we're just going to keep it simple, and we're just going to work with text files so that you understand or grasp the concepts. All right. So we're creating this new file called story.txt. All right. And it's a .txt file, which means a text file. I'm just going to put some random story in here. So once upon a time in a land of code, a new story began. All right. So you can see I've entered a line of code and I've saved it. Command save or Command S or Control S to save it, and then it's got this U tag. All right, so the U tag means untracked, and what that means is Git is not tracking this file across the version control on the local system. All right, so basically when you pull a file or clone a GitHub repository, Git is already initialized. Git is your local version control system, and GitHub is obviously the cloud-based version control system. All right, so when you clone a GitHub repository, Git is always enabled. So that's why you see this U tag on the file. All right, which means untracked, which means Git is not tracking it. All right, so if you want to make Git start tracking it, what you need to do is you need to come on this activity bar on the left. You should come to your source control tab. All right, and then in changes it shows you've made one change. All right, and that change is creating a story.txt file. All right, so now what you need to do is you need to do the add command. All right, or the VS Code equivalent of the add command. So when in the earlier days when Git was on local systems, you would do git add, and that is basically what that does. It moves codes of code files to the staging area. All right, and then from the staging area, once you're happy, you can commit those files. All right, so to move code to the staging area, or basically do a git add in VS Code and GitHub, we just need to click the plus button here. All right, which is called stage changes. So you'll see that this story.txt file with one line of text has been moved to the staged changes, and it's ready to be committed. All right, so only file, when you hit this commit button, only files in the stage changes area will be committed. If you've got untracked changed files and it's not staged, they will not be committed. All right, so what we can do now is just basically maybe put a commit message. So we've created a feature, right? You can call a feat created story.txt, and then we can hit commit. All right, so what commit does is it saves that version of the file and checkpoints it into your local version control system. All right, so we're going to hit commit. So now that change has been committed and that version of the file has been saved in the version control system. All right, we've created story.txt with one line of text. All right, now what we want to do to push, we want to do a push. All right, and what the push does is it pushes this saved version or this checkpointed version to the cloud, which is GitHub. All right, your online version control system. And to do a push, what we can do is either we can write git push here in your run command tab, or we can just hit this sync changes. You can see this one with a arrow up, which means it pushes one commit up to the GitHub cloud. All right, so I'm going to hit sync changes, and we can see that commit has been the sync changes has been done successfully. All right, so now what happens when we come here, we only have the readme file. Okay, but now when I update or refresh the tab, you can see that we have this committed story.txt file here as well with our one line of text. All right, so we come back here, and that is basically we looked at some of the very basic git commands in this initial section. All right, so what do? We did initialization, which is basically when you clone a GitHub repo into VS Code, it automatically starts git init. Okay, version control is initiated for that folder. All right, and then we did a clone. We cloned a repository from GitHub. This is my own repository. And then we did a add, which is we made a change in a file, and then we moved it to the staging area, which is basically a git add command. And then we did a commit. We committed a file to the version control system and checkpointed it at a particular version in time. And then after that, we did a push. All right, a push means basically when we send that latest version to GitHub. All right, so basically now the next thing which we need to do is we want to keep in sync, all right, with the version that is in the cloud. All right, so normally when you use version control systems, you're working with a team. All right, and other people are pushing commits to the cloud, and you want to always make sure that you're at the latest version of the code. All right, so how do we do that? All right, so let's come over to GitHub here and let's make a manual change in the code. Okay, so we come over to our story.txt file, and then we can hit edit this file here on this pencil tab, and then we can write the story was about learning VS Code and GitHub in 2025. All right, and then I'm just going to save it and hit commit changes, and then it commit messages update story.txt. That's fine. We hit commit changes, and this change is committed or saved, and this becomes the latest version of code in GitHub in the cloud, in our cloud versioning system. All right. So now when we come back here, we realize, oh, we're not in the latest version because somebody else, say my colleague or my teammate or my partner, has made a change to the cloud, but I'm not looking at that change in the cloud. I'm not working on the latest version of the system. All right. So how do we get to the latest version? We do something called a git pull. All right. A git pull gets the latest version of your code from GitHub. All right. And we can do that either by coming to this command run, the run command tab, that is command shift P, and entering git pull, or we can just press this sync changes button, which is auto updated with a 1 down arrow. So it's pulling that one commit which was made down to our local version of pulling that one commit down to our local version of the code. All right. So when I hit sync changes, you'll see that we get updated and the second line has also been added. All right. So we basically looked at also now the pull command. All right. So the pull command, so up till now we've looked at basically all of the major versions or major commands in version control or Git software with deal with a single branch, all right, of code. So now getting into slightly more intermediate segment, we introduced this concept or frame of thinking called branching. All right. And what branching means is that there are separate sort of parallel universes of code. All right. So suppose we have the default main code, which is what we're working on now. You can see how you check your branches. You come to the bottom left corner and you see this tree icon and you see main. So that means we're working in the main branch. All right. So that's the default version of the code. And if this was to go into the final version of the code, which is going to go into the world, that would be it. But suppose we wanted to work on a new feature, all right, or we wanted to try adding a new feature, but we don't want to mess with this code which is working just fine at this point in time. What we do is something we called creating a new branch. All right. And what this allows us to do is it creates sort of a separate instance of code based on that latest version of the original branch, and then you can mess with that code a bit and continue working on it. But if that doesn't work out in the end, what you can do is revert back to the original branch and nothing has happened. All right. So I'll show you how that works. All right. So what we can do is we can come to create a new branch. We can come down to the bottom left corner of your VSCode tab and then click on that main branch, and then you can say create new branch. All right. So once you create a new branch, you can give it a branch name. So we can call it maybe add character. All right. So add character is done and you hit enter. And then what happens is it performs something called a checkout. All right. What a checkout is means we've been working in one branch of code, but you can now check out to another branch of code. All right. So we've checked out from main and gone to add character. All right. So an add character is based on the latest version of main from when we created this new branch. All right. So now what we can do is we can start adding new things into main. All right. So we can come over here to the code story.txt. And then suppose if this was code, we would be adding a new feature. Maybe here we can just introduce our new character as we discussed. So a wise old grandpa named I don't know, Senna watched from a tree. All right. So just some random, I don't know, sentence. All right. And we save that. All right. And what we've done is we've basically created a new line of code. Basically this would be a new feature and we've committed that. We've saved that file. And now what we need to do is commit that to this branch. So same process, add it to the staging area of this branch and then hit commit. And then with commit, we can do is add a message. So we added a feature which is introduce the Senna character. All right. And then we do commit. And then once we've committed, we can publish this branch because it's a new branch which does not exist in the cloud. Instead of saying push or sync changes to the cloud, the push will be relabeled to publish branch. All right. So when we hit publish branch, what happens is it's pushed to the cloud. And now when we come to VSCode to our GitHub repo, you can see that now here we've got a drop down of different branches. All right. We've got main and add character, and in main it's still in that old version of working code. All right. But if we switch this to add character, which is the new branch, we have this new line of code with new line of text, which would typically be a new feature in code. All right, so that's how you create a branch, all right, and publish it to GitHub. All right, so we've looked at now checkout and branch. All right, so now coming to the next fascinating concept of version control, GitHub and VS Code, is something called a pull request, okay, or creating a pull request. And what that basically means is, say I was working on this new feature, which I created a new branch, and I started working on this new feature, and then I realized, oh, it's really good, it's come out well. And then I'm like, okay, maybe this should be in the original or the code that is the main code. That means you want to put it back into the main branch. You can do something called create a pull request, which basically notifies your team or the people that you're working with, saying, hey, okay, I've created this new branch and new feature. I want this to be checked out by you guys. You guys can review the code, and then if it's fine, we do something called a merge request, and then the code is merged back into the main branch. All right, so that branch which separated comes back into the main branch. All right, and GitHub does this really well with a graph, and I'll show you that in a second. All right, so what we can do is, to make that happen, is we come over here to back to VS Code, and then we have this in the activity tab. We have this section called GitHub. All right, so we'll go to GitHub, make sure you're in the add character, that is the new branch, and then come up to the top, and then you'll see this create pull request button. All right, so we hit create pull request, and it automatically detects that you want to merge from add character branch to the main your base branch. You want to merge add character back to the main branch. All right, and basically it's the same description. You introduce the Senna character as a new feature. All right, and then you can hit create pull request. All right, so your pull request has been created, and then basically what happens is you have this pull request tab, and then we can maybe look at this in GitHub. This is easier to understand. All right, so what you'll see is now in this pull request tab, you'll have one pull request created. All right, and that is, we've introduced this feature of introducing the Senna character. All right, and we want to merge that into the branch. All right, so you can see the feature is introduce the Senna character, and this would be the point where your boss or your team members or your colleagues can come and look at what you've done. You would give it a detailed description of what you've done, the variables you've used, and how it works, how there's no issues, how you've tested it. You can add all that here. Or your team members, once they've gone through the code, they would write their comments here, and your team boss would then do a merge pull request. So let's just check out the code. So we click on this feature, and then you can see in the green, it's added the line which we've added there, which is a wise old grandpa named Senna, watch from a tree. All right, so that looks fine. So review changes, it's fine. So then what we can do is come back to pull request, and then we can hit merge pull request. Okay, and what merge does is basically bring that add character branch back into the main branch, and that means that new line of code is added into the main branch code. All right, so what you're going to see that happen right now when I hit confirm merge. All right, so that pull request has been successfully merged and closed. All right, so two new concepts. We created a pull request, so we reviewed the code which our team member, in this case me, created. We didn't think it's a problem, and then we did a merge. All right, so the add character branch has been merged into the main branch. All right, so let's come back to code. You'll realize we've been shifted back to the main branch, and then now when we come to story.txt, in the main branch, you can see we've got this third line, which is basically a new feature or some new functionality of code which has been added to this particular version of the project, which is the main branch. All right, and then we come here to our back to our VS Code editor. You can see we are still in add character. All right, but we have this option to check out main. All right, so that means GitHub knows the merge request has been the pull request was created and merged successfully, so it's given us this option to check out to main. So you just click that, and you can see we directly jump to main, and then we have story.txt here, but it's missing that line of code. All right, what's the issue? We've not synced the changes. All right, we're 2 commits behind. All right, so the other way to do it, either we can do sync changes, as I told you, Command Shift P, and then we can do a git pull. Alright, so we've done a git pull, and now you can see we've got that third line of code. And then you come to this graph section here. What you'll see is the blue line of code is the main. Alright, and this yellow line is basically the add character branch. At one point in the add character branch, we introduced a new Senna character, and then we merged it back to the main branch. So now we have the 3 lines of code back here in the main branch. So once that's done, what we can do is basically come to the final feature of this video, which is the final basic feature that you need to know to get a lot out of using version control systems such as GitHub with your VS Code development. All right, and that is resolving merge conflicts. All right, so what happens is sometimes when you try to merge and 2 people edit the same line of code, GitHub or Git version control system needs help deciding which version of the code to keep. All right, so let's see how that works. All right, so what we're going to do is basically create a new branch of code, and we're going to call it story ending. All right, hit enter, and then what we're going to do is we're going to edit this line of code and make a wise old grandpa named Senna. Change this to taught everyone how to play poker. All right, I'm going to save this. All right, and then in this story ending branch, add the changes to the staging area, and in documentation I'm going to write updated Senna's role. Hit commit, and then because it's a new branch, instead of sync changes it says publish branch, so I'm going to say pub. Alright, so now I'm saying publish branch, and basically here what happens is that branch has been published to the main code in your cloud. That branch has been published and synced to your online version control system. Alright, so once that has been done, what we can do is come back to our main branch. Alright, and then we're going to edit this same line of code, but here we can write treated everyone to McDonald's. So this is if there's some miscommunication in how you and your team are working, you would both edit the same line of code and give it different functionality. All right, so that's where merge conflicts happen. So we're going to hit save here, and then we'll just stage the changes and commit. So these changes have also been committed. All right, so I made a small mistake. I didn't put a commit message, which is a mistake. Alright, so I didn't put a commit message, which is a big issue. Alright, so you always remember to put a commit message. Right, so this is a feature which I added, which is add a conclusion to the story, which is him treating them to McDonald's. Alright, commit, sync changes. So we've got now 2 versions of the same line of code, which one is in main and one is in the story ending branch. All right, so we come back to this story ending branch, we check out to the story ending branch, and then we see a wise old grandpa named Senna taught everyone how to play poker. But in the main branch, one of my team members has basically added this line of code where he, instead of taught everyone how to play poker, he treats everyone to McDonald's. All right, which is basically in the code instance, that would be the version of 2 different functionalities for the same line of code. All right, some miscommunication has happened. So when you go to create a pull request, all right, so I wanted to create a pull request. I want to merge this story ending branch into the main branch. I updated Senna's role, which is what I did in the story ending branch, and I create the pull request, okay, which is I'm saying, okay, this is fine, I want to bring it and merge it into the main branch. I hit create pull request, and then immediately I see an issue. All right, this branch has conflicts that must be resolved. Right, so now if I want to resolve the conflicts, I can do it here or I can do it in GitHub. I think GitHub is easier. So I can go to pull requests, and then you'll see I have this updated Sena's role pull request which I've created, and then you can see this branch has conflicts that must be resolved. All right, so what I can do is basically resolve conflicts. All right, and it gives me this interesting editor where it shows me what are the two versions of the same line of code, and I can manually get in there and edit them to fix the confliction. All right, so what I'm going to do is remove all these lines which are touching this red sort of thing on the side. That's basically the placeholders to let us know which code is from which commit and which branch. And what I'm going to do is I'm looking at the two lines of code and I'm seeing, okay, there's redundancy built in here, and I suppose I wanted to resolve the conflict by saying he taught everyone how to play poker and then treated them to McDonald's. All right, obviously this is a very dumbed down version. In an actual coding instance, it would be two scenarios of two different functionalities which would intersect, and it would be a little tougher to resolve the merge conflict. But here we can sort of do it like this, just to give you an idea of how you can resolve conflicts. All right, and then we hit mark as resolved. The conflict has been resolved, and we just hit commit merge, which means your pull request has been closed and merge has been done successfully. All right, no conflicts with base branch. Merge pull request, confirm merge. All right, pull request successfully merged and closed. All right, so very good. Come back to code and main branch, and we check out story.txt, and we can see the story is ended successfully. A wise old grandpa named Sena taught everyone how to play poker and then treated them to McDonald's. All right, it's right what we wanted. All the functionality of code is in there perfectly. All right, and then if we come back to VSCode, we'll realize we're not up to date. Sync changes down here, and then we get that same updated version of code. We need that in our main branch. So I checked out our main branch and did a git pull and realized that we are in the latest version of code with no conflicts and all functionality and features included. All right, so that's it for this demo, guys. We did a lot, we covered a lot. Hopefully this demo was useful for you. So what all did we look at? We looked at how to initiate version control or Git for a VS Code project when working with GitHub. Then we looked at how to clone a repo from GitHub into VS Code onto your system locally. Then we looked at how to do git add, that means add files to the staging area and then commit those files to the local versioning control systems. Then we did git push, which pushes those files to GitHub, the online version control systems. Then we did a git pull, which means updating your local repo with the latest version of code in the online GitHub cloud. And then we did a branch, created new branches. We did checkout, which is jumping between branches. We did merge, we created pull requests, and then we resolved merge conflicts as well. All right, so it's a power pack video. You can watch this video again once or twice. I'll be making more videos like this, diving deep into AI also a bit more to give you guys an idea of how the world of coding is going to change. So stay tuned, definitely subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new upload. Thank you guys for watching.